Good morning. This is Patchy ̶ from Synth City, and today we're going to spend some time with the Chronoblob. Here we have the Chronoblob doing a standard long echo. Being a digital delay, the repeats tend to be super clean, which is a great sound, but we may want to warm up our echo occasionally for a more natural effect. Patching through an analog filter works great to create a nice tape echo emulation. The way the module pitch shifts on time changes and distorts at high feedback amounts works perfectly with a filter in the send and return. This sort of configuration has a really smooth and warm sound and works well with the source like the rings that has a lot of harmonic content. To take our sound to the full lo-fi tape echo realm, we can patch in some time modulation and fine-tune with the attenuverter to get a nice dreamy wobble. The source of modulation has a great effect on the type of atmosphere we can create. Faster modulations will convey a sort of wow and flutter effect, where slower warping can suggest a more ambient soundscape. Random modulation can take us to a feeling of brokenness, especially when the amount is increased. This broken effect especially shines at longer delay times. The wobble is more apparent because of the slowness of the repeats. My favorite thing about a patch like this on the Chronoblob is that there's still some digital artifacts, so we're kind of sitting in this realm of an imperfect digital emulation of a tape echo. It's just a gritty and super usable sound. To further explore the effect send and return, let's move away from the more obvious use of a filter and jump into some experimental territory by patching into none other than a second Chronoblob. The overall crunchy sound of these modules is doubled up with some fun cascading repeats. Using two Chronoblobs in this fashion is extra fun because it is hard to follow their interactions. It forces you to listen and play around, which leads to some exciting discoveries. In this patch we're exploring the hold mode, which basically freezes and loops the audio in the buffer. Changing the delay time simply controls the endpoint of the loop, so it's fairly basic overall. A fun characteristic is that when the echo mode switches up, pitch variations will actually happen when changing the loop length. The extension of this behavior into the hold mode gives some exciting character to this simple loop feature. When the range switch is set to shorter lengths, our loop can become very tiny, eventually creating a new tone in a pleasantly glitchy fashion. If we flip our mode switch to the crossfading type, a more natural sounding length change of the loop is possible. It's more of a glitchy effect which sounds great on looping audio. My favorite thing about the hold mode is to use it as a rhythmic bass and build up a patch from it, or play over the top of it with my fingers on a keyboard. Here we have some clocks patched, syncing the Chronoblobs to the SCM. With tempo syncing and delay time modulation in the crossfade mode, we instantly enter the brain of a computer, basically recreating what it must feel like to think in ones and zeros. We can further experience the sound of data if we engage the hold switch with CV, adding even more uncertainty to an already unstable mind. Here's a variation on our dual Chronoblob patch. This time we are patching the effect send of one to the return of the other, and the effect send of the other to the return of the other. This creates a very different effect than the earlier cascading delays. Now we have more of a reverb, as the siblings' brainwaves are entirely intertwined. Their thoughts are connected like the two hemispheres of a brain. I call this the Corpus Callosum patch. It's more dramatic and emotive than our earlier cross-patching experiments. This is one of my favorite patches with the Chronoblobs, and pretty much ends the debate over buying one or two of the modules. Besides being an exceptionally dope delay, the blob excels in equally dope modulation effects, creating continuously variable sounds along the lines of vibrato, chorus, and flanger. Similar to our tape echo, our source, shape, and speed of modulation greatly impacts the sound of these effects. We can take this simple vibrato a step further by dialing back the mix and bringing in some of our OG signal. Now we have a homemade chorus unit. At this point in the presentation, I'd like to give a shout out to the Mutable Instruments Rings. It's absolutely lovely sounds have graced our ears through all of our patches, and it goes without saying that the Chronoblob and Rings are a brilliant pairing. A more dramatic chorus vibrato can be achieved by dialing back the delay time a bit longer. Furthermore, if we take our simple chorus patch and bring in some feedback, we start to feel it flanging. Crunchy and resonant like the sound of a dragonfly's brainwaves. My favorite thing about using the Chronoblob for modulation effects is the ability to morph sounds so easily with no telling exactly what they are. Just like the natural currents of the sea, gravitational waves, and the breeze on a warm summer day. My name is Patchy ̶. Thanks for joining me and the Blobs at Synth City Chicago for a fun exploratory episode of Patches. Let's let the abundant chrono waves take us away.